Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Hub. I'm Brennan and today we're doing another team preview and we're looking at the Ottawa Senators. Now the Ottawa Senators have had a massive offseason. They've weaponized their cap space, their assets and their draft picks and really have made their roster a lot better. That being said, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to compete in a Canadian division, but we are going to start off with what they added. Now we're going to start off with some of the depth signings of the Ottawa Senators. They did sign Michael Haley. He's no more than a 13th forward or maybe even an AHL player. Kind of the same for Logan Shaw, but they did trade for Eric Gabranson, who I imagine is going to play in their top six, especially for the money that they're paying him, and he does bring a strong physical game. They do have high expectations for Gabranson. He's likely to play alongside maybe even Thomas Chabot, according to their head coach DJ Smith. I'm not sure if that's necessarily going to work. I don't think that Gabranson is worthy of a top four spot. But with the lack of defensive depth in Ottawa, he could end up pushing his way in there. Josh Brown is another guy they traded for, and I think that he's probably going to be a bottom pairing guy for them. I'm not necessarily sure where he's going to fit in, but Brown is, probably a decent bottom pairing defender, more of a defensive defenseman for sure. But that being said, can bring some physicality and some defensive awareness to this young Ottawa lineup. And they also traded for Austin Watson from the Nashville Predators. Now, Austin Watson is a very big player. He's a good two-way player, and he brings a lot of grit and tenaciousness and physicality, and can play very well on the penalty kill as well. So he's kind of a Swiss Army knife, and he's going to be that for the Ottawa Senators. He is on a low cap hit, so I do think that that's good value for Ottawa. There has been some character issues with Austin Watson in the past. Obviously, I don't need to get into that, but hopefully he's able to kind of turn that around in Ottawa and maybe find a good home there and have some of his best years. They also signed Alex Galchenyuk to a one-year deal. I think that getting Galchenyuk is really smart for the Ottawa Senators. That is one of those, low-risk, high-reward signings. If this is Galchenyuk's last year and he proves that he isn't able to be, a good middle six forward at the NHL level, which was much lower than what was expected of him. But yeah, if he's not able to really become anything for the Ottawa Senators, he probably ends up in the KHL or somewhere. But it's just a one-year contract, so there's no risk in that. Best case scenario, he's able to kind of get back to some of the form we saw in Montreal, where he was a one-time 30-goal scorer. He did hit 20 on numerous occasions and showed some of that offensive potential. I don't think that Galchenyuk is ever going to live up to that third overall draft billing, but that being said, I do think he still has the potential to turn himself into a decent middle six forward, and I think the Ottawa Senators are a perfect fit for him. Then there's some players that they brought in recently from trades, such as Cedric Paquette, Braden Coburn, and Derek Stepan. Stepan, I think, is going to be a good addition for the Ottawa Senators. I did think that they gave up a bit much to get him, but that being said, he should slot in as that second or third line centerman and can play anywhere up and down the lineup and should be a useful key for the Ottawa Senators and maybe even a guy that they can ship off of the trade deadline. Truthfully, they did get him because there's only $2 million left in actual money to pay him, and their owner, Eugene Melnyk, is one of the cheapest and kind of slimiest owners in the NHL, so it's of little surprise that Stepan was a guy that was brought in, but that being said, hopefully he is able to bring a lot to the Ottawa lineup. Cedric Paquette is one of the best fourth-line centers in the NHL. His offensive numbers don't stand out, but that's not really what you're looking for from Paquette. He's a very good defensive center, does bring some physicality, and does have a lot of experience from playing with the Tampa Bay Lightning, going to a few Stanley Cup finals, and even winning a Stanley Cup this past season with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Braden Coburn is a good defensive defenseman. I don't know how much mileage he has left in his career. He has played a lot, and he's played heavy minutes, and he does play a rough type of game. So I could see this being his last season in the NHL, especially with COVID and everything. But it is still going to be a good pickup for the Ottawa Senators. Really helps out their defensive depth. I imagine Coburn plays in that top four, and he is going to make that top four look a lot better. Then I think the two big additions for the Ottawa Senators is, the acquisition of goaltender Matt Murray. Now, Murray's kind of been under the fire for the last few seasons, playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but I think people forget that he's not that long removed from 2 Stanley Cup wins back-to-back. I still think that Murray has the potential to be a very good goaltender in the NHL. I don't know if he'll ever be a top 10 goalie, but I'd certainly think that he can be a good starter for the Ottawa Senators. I do expect a bounce-back season from Matt Murray. I know that his record probably won't look that great playing for Ottawa, but that being said, I do expect his save percentage and goals against average to come up a little bit. I do like Murray, and I think that he got way too much criticism in Pittsburgh. That Pittsburgh defense isn't always the greatest at times, and I understand that Jari outperformed him for 1 year, but I'm kind of wondering if Murray is going to make Pittsburgh regret that trade, as they kind of did with Fleury a few seasons ago when they let him go to the Vegas Golden Knights. So Murray could be the next in line, and I'm kind of hoping for big things from Matt Murray when it comes to how he's going to perform with the Ottawa Senators. And then there's the signing of Evgeny Dadonov. Now, to me, this signing really surprised me. I didn't expect Dadonov to go to a place like Ottawa. I figured he was going to, return to Florida or go to a contending team, but he actually kind of took a discount to go to Ottawa, which really surprised me. Dadonov likes the fact that he can be a top guy and kind of play a leadership role there in Ottawa. So I think that that's really good things to hear from, a new free agent signing going to kind of a middle of the pack or maybe still rebuilding team. So I do think that Dadonov is a very good addition for the Ottawa Senators, and I do think he probably projects as one of the best forwards there for sure, and is definitely going to play on that top line. I imagine that Dadonov probably ends up leading the Senators in scoring. He does bring a very good overall game, and for 3 years at $5 million, I kind of wonder why the Florida Panthers didn't elect to bring him back. Dadonov should be a great fit in Ottawa, and I'm sure Senators fans are excited to see him play. Now, as for the guys the Ottawa Senators lost, they did trade out goaltender Anders Nielsen. Now, I don't think that Nielsen ends up playing again in the NHL, so obviously this isn't exactly a big loss. Nielsen was a decent backup for the Ottawa Senators for a while, but he's definitely on his way out now. They also lost goaltender Craig Anderson to free agency. Craig Anderson has been one of, if not the best goaltender in Ottawa Senators history. It is going to be a little weird to see him in a different uniform, despite the fact that he didn't play his entire career with Ottawa. He's just one of those guys that really feels like an Ottawa Senator. His best years were there, and obviously a lot of memorable moments, such as the run to the Eastern Conference Finals, or his return game after helping his wife out in the battle in her battle against cancer. Craig Anderson is a class act, and he's a hero for many. And I'm hoping that he's able to maybe play a few more years in the NHL. At least one. He did sign a professional tryout with the Washington Capitals, so I hope he's going to be able to secure a backup spot there, because I do like Craig Anderson, and I know a lot of Ottawa fans do. I know that his last few years in Ottawa weren't exactly the greatest, but that's result of age and a very poor defense in front of him. But I do think that Craig Anderson is one of the best Ottawa Senators goaltenders of all time, and maybe even a guy that they could consider retiring his number for the Ottawa Senators. They also ended up letting Mark Borowiecki walk. This kind of surprised me because Borokop was kind of one of the faces of the franchise there in Ottawa. He did that awkward interview with Melnyk a few seasons ago, but he talked about what it meant to be an Ottawa Senator and kind of the direction of the team and how he wanted to, see through this vision of the rebuild with the team. But he ended up signing with the Nashville Predators, and that was kind of a surprise to me. Boro kind of felt like a guy that was always meant to be a Senator, and it is going to be a shame to see him play in a different uniform. They chose not to qualify restricted free agent forward Jace Howard. Howard ended up signing with the Vancouver Canucks, and I do think that Howard was actually pretty good for the few games he played with Ottawa, and it kind of baffles me that they didn't choose to even qualify him. So I do think that that might be a regrettable decision for the Ottawa Senators. Howard is a decent forward. They also let Ron Hainsey walk, and as I'm filming this video, Hainsey is not yet signed with the team and could end up hanging them up. I do think that Braden Coburn was kind of brought in to replace that role that Hainsey plays and is probably an upgrade on Coburn. So I don't think that losing Hainsey is going to be a big loss for the Ottawa Senators. Probably more so it's going to be felt in the locker room than anything, more so than his on-ice impact. They also bought out Bobby Ryan, which to me was another move that baffled me. Bobby Ryan was just coming off that amazing story where he beat his addiction and was able to put up a hat trick in his first game back in Ottawa. So they ended up buying him out, which doesn't make a lot of sense because it's not like they were in cap hell. They were actually trying to add cap. And I think they probably should have just kept Bobby Ryan around for the last few years. I think that Bobby Ryan is probably going to end up having a bounce-back season in Detroit, and I, alongside many hockey fans, is definitely rooting for him. And then I think their biggest loss of the offseason was the fact that they didn't choose to qualify Anthony Duclair. Now, this is a move that really baffled me. Duclair ended up signing with the Florida Panthers, and for only a one-year, $1.7 million contract. That's definitely a contract that Ottawa could have re-signed him for. But that being said, I do understand that Duclair rejected around a $4 million contract at 3 years, so I think this is more so just foolishness off Duclair's part, but Ottawa still could have qualified him and then traded him. It's not like his qualifying offer was that high, and the salary isn't necessarily an issue for the Ottawa Senators. So letting Duclair walk is going to hurt. I do think that Dadonov is an upgrade, but that being said, Dadonov is a lot older, and Duclair was looking like a guy that could have been in that forward core for years to come. So that is a big loss for the Ottawa Senators. He was an all-star last year and was one of their best forwards. Now, looking at the top six of the Ottawa Senators, it is very middling. Chris Tierney is probably a guy that still slots in as a top six forward there, and that kind of speaks to the lack of center depth and forward depth for the Ottawa Senators. Connor Brown is actually a decent winger. I do think that he gets underrated a lot, and when he signed that recent contract extension, there was a lot of people saying, why did they give him $3.6 million? That seems like an overpayment. But if you watch Ottawa games and you watch Connor Brown play, you can tell that he is a decent forward, and I do think that he's definitely worth that contract. Brown is a good player and had a really good year in Ottawa. Honestly, I think Alex Galchenyuk probably slides into this top six as well, perhaps as a left wing, and that really does speak to the lack of good forwards for the Ottawa Senators right now. Obviously, I do think a guy like Josh Norris or Drake Batherson or Tim Stützle could end up pushing their way into this top six, but I don't want to just hand rookie spots, so I do think that Galchenyuk is probably going to get a look in the top six option, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. If he's able to bounce back, then that could look really smart for the Ottawa Senators, but for right now, that kind of speaks to the lack of forward depth there. But then their higher end forwards would be Colin White. White had a brutal year this past year after signing a big contract, so Ottawa Senators fans really are going to need him to bounce back. He is projected as being one of these key guys for the future, a real core piece there, so hopefully he's able to have a bounce back season. I do expect White to have a little bit of a bounce back season, considering he probably projects as the first line center for Ottawa. But then the two really good forwards there in Ottawa are Brady Tkachuk and Evgeny Dadonov, who I previously mentioned. Brady Tkachuk is kind of one of the young centerpieces there for the Ottawa Senators. There's a very big expectations for him, and so far he's lived up to them. He's been very good in the first two seasons he's played. He's brought that physical edge, that grit, and kind of that power forward game, and I do think that the offense is going to come along as well. He's already a 20-goal scorer, and I do think that that's probably going to increase to a 30-goal scorer in the coming years, and is going to be very similar point-wise to his brother Matthew Tkachuk, who's playing in Calgary. So I do like Brady Tkachuk's overall game. He is definitely a pain in the ass to play against. I know that as a Montreal fan, but I can obviously tell why Ottawa fans really like him, and I do respect the type of game he plays. I think Dadonov is going to bring instant offense to the Ottawa Senators lineup. I do expect him to probably lead the team in points. His defensive game isn't the strongest, but Dadonov is a guy that you just kind of count on for the offense, and I think he's definitely going to bring that for the Ottawa Senators. Now, Ottawa's defense on paper is looking really rough right now. Braden Coburn probably fits into that top four, but then I think Nikita Zaitsev does as well. To me, I don't think Zaitsev is a top four defender. He's not particularly good on the defensive side of things, and he's not good in the offensive side of things. That contract is kind of cumbersome, and it still baffles me why Ottawa decided to pick him up. I do understand that their head coach DJ Smith had a connection to him, but that being said, he really wasn't that great in his first year in Ottawa. Hopefully he can have a bounce back season, but he's been kind of poor for the last few seasons, even in his last couple seasons in Toronto, so I don't think that the Zaitsev experiment is exactly working out for Ottawa right now. But Eric Brandstrom is an interesting piece. Now, Brandstrom was the centerpiece of the trade that sent Mark Stone to the Vegas Golden Knights, and right now that trade looks like a landslide win for the Vegas Golden Knights because Brandstrom hasn't exactly lived up to expectations. I understand that Brandstrom is still very young and really hasn't played that much in the NHL, but he hasn't really developed well in the AHL either. I'm kind of wondering where Brandstrom's ceiling is right now. I'm not sure if he has that elite potential anymore. I think that he's more so, I think he will be a top four guy, but I'm not necessarily sure about a top pairing guy. The Ottawa Senators are going to need him to step up, though, if they want to, be a contentious team in the Ottawa or in the Canadian division. So hopefully Brandstrom is able to, maybe even play a top pairing role alongside a guy like Thomas Chabot. But Chabot is the key piece and the workhorse here for the Ottawa Senators. To me, Chabot is one of the best defensemen in the NHL, obviously top 10. He's an absolute minute muncher. He did lead all defenders in time on ice last season in the NHL, and he's got very gifted offensive instincts to go along with a strong defensive game. I think Chabot should be the next captain there. His overall game is amazing, and he's one of my favorites in the league. Chabot, I think, is the Ottawa Senators' best player overall, and is kind of the franchise piece for them moving forward. Now, the Ottawa Senators goaltending tandem is an interesting one. I imagine that Marcus Hoberg slots in as the backup again. Hoberg was actually pretty decent for the Ottawa Senators, had some really good games for them, and overall was actually able to keep them in a lot of games. He did end up racking up a lot of overtime losses, but that just shows that he was able to give them a chance to win, which is saying a lot when you're playing for a team as poor as the Ottawa Senators have been these past few years. But I think Matt Murray is coming in as a true starter. I do like Matt Murray. We did talk about that earlier, and I think that he should be able to bounce back and kind of be Ottawa's goaltender for the present and maybe even the future. Murray's still young. He still has upside, and he has proven that he can be a very good goalie. He's got 2 Stanley Cup wins. He has that winning pedigree, and I think a guy like Matt Murray, you get into the playoffs, and he shows why he is an NHL goaltender and an NHL starter. I really like getting Matt Murray for the Ottawa Senators, and I expect big things from him. When you look at the core 5 for the Ottawa Senators and their best players, you can kind of see the pieces starting to form, but that being said, it's still a weak core 5 right now. They're definitely led by Thomas Chabot, who I talked about previously. Chabot is the best Ottawa Senator. I think he's the right pick for the captain, and is going to be one of the best defensemen in the league, and probably already is. Brady Tkachuk is the other franchise face there right now. He's a very marketed figure in Ottawa. Obviously, we see with Ottawa's new jerseys, Tkachuk is kind of the only name you can get right now. So I do think that the Ottawa Senators are expecting Tkachuk to be like his brother and expecting him to be that star power forward, and Brady has already shown a lot in his first 2 years. Evgeny Dadonov once again coming in should provide instant offense, and then the 2 guys that I would have to round out these best players would be probably Connor Brown and Colin White. Despite the fact that Colin White had a brutal year, I do think that he has the potential of being a very good number 2 centerman, and in his first few years proved that he can definitely provide some offense to go along with a strong 2-way game for a young player. And then Connor Brown, once again, he's a solid 2-way winger as well, with some offense there. Not necessarily a good goal scorer, but is a good playmaker, and is definitely going to pile up some assists if he ends up playing alongside a guy, like Brady Tkachuk or Evgeny Dadonov, or maybe even Tim Stützle. So overall, this best players category for the Ottawa Senators isn't strong, but it is young for the most part, and I do think that it's going to change when guys like Tim Stützle come up, maybe even Josh Norris as well. Now, getting into players that I want to talk about, I do want to talk about the aforementioned Josh Norris. Now, Josh Norris was a piece that was brought in the trade for Erik Karlsson. So he was brought in from the San Jose Sharks, and he was a first-round draft pick. And in his first season in the AHL, he was simply incredible. He was one of Belleville's best players, and really has a lot of offensive upside to go along with a strong 2-way game for a young player. I do think that Josh Norris is going to be a very good centerman at the NHL level. I know a lot of Ottawa fans are very excited for him, and could end up being a dark horse for the Calder Trophy. I really like his overall game. I think he's going to be fantastic for the Ottawa Senators, and probably projects as that, second line, maybe even first line center of the future, depending on where Tim Stützle plays. But Stützle is the next player that I want to talk about. Now, as I'm filming this video, the World Junior round robin is currently happening, and Tim Stützle has been out of this world. He has been better than Byfield, and I know that Byfield had himself a big game as well, but Stützle has been good in every single game he plays in. He stands out. He generates offensive chances. He does have a surprising physical edge to his game, and he's good defensively. Stützle is the complete package and definitely has elite offensive potential. I do think that Tim Stützle will probably end up being the Ottawa Senators' best player, up there with Chabot when these guys hit their primes. And I do think that Stützle is pretty close to being NHL ready. I do think that he could jump in and be another dark horse for the Calder Trophy. Just kind of depends on where he's going to play this year, but right now he's showing a lot playing for the World Juniors, and I think he was definitely worth that 3rd overall draft pick so far. So Tim Stützle should be that future star forward for the Ottawa Senators, and Senators fans should be very happy about getting him. I personally think that Stützle is probably the better player between him and Byfield. I thought that LA might have been making a mistake going with Byfield. Still think Byfield's going to be good, but to me, Stützle is just on another level. But then the last player I want to get into talking about is Chris Tierney. Now, Chris Tierney has been decent for the Ottawa Senators, but it's more so what they're going to do with him. He did sign a short-term contract, so I could see them actually shipping out Tierney for at the deadline, to get back another draft pick or something. And I do think that this would be a smart move, seeing as Tierney doesn't exactly fit in for their mold for the future. He is a centerman, and Ottawa has a lot of really young centermen with a lot of potential, such as the aforementioned Josh Norris and Tim Stützle, Drake Batherson, Colin White, and even guys that haven't lived up to that potential yet, but still could, like Logan Brown. So I do think that Tierney is probably going to be out of Ottawa sooner rather than later. It's just a matter of what they get back for him. As far as the category goes for the Ottawa Senators, I would still firmly say that they're a rebuilder. Playing in that Canadian division, I can't see them making the playoffs, to be honest. Even though they definitely improved a lot this offseason and had one of the best offseasons of any team in the NHL, I still think that their defense is very weak and their forward core is middling at best. There is a lot of young potential star power here, but that's just potential right now, and I'm not sure if a guy like Tim Stützle is going to be able to come in and, be a point-per-game player right away. I do think that Brady Tkachuk is really good. I think there's a lot of good pieces here in Ottawa, and I think 3 or 4 years from now, maybe even as soon as 2 years from now, could end up being a really good team and could be a playoff contender. But that being said, right now, I still think that they're a rebuilder, and that's probably what's best for them. If they can pick up another high draft pick, say in the top 5, that's going to make their, the future of their franchise look even better and even stronger with this, massive pool of prospects they have. The future is very bright for the Ottawa Senators, and I think that they are going to be a very fun team to watch, and is going to make the Canadian division very interesting, since I do think that they are going to be, a hard team to play against, and I think that they are going to steal some points from teams that you wouldn't necessarily expect, like Calgary or Toronto. So I do expect, some things from the Ottawa Senators this year. I don't expect them to be a playoff team. I still think they finish last, but that being said, I expect them to play hard night in and night out, and, be a competitive team at the very least. But that does it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching till the end. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.